They took me to court over her will. But what they didn't know was that she left me a key, not to a house, but to a secret only she trusted me with. The knock on my door came just after midnight. Loud, sharp, desperate. When I opened it, I found my cousin Chloe standing there with mascara-streaked cheeks and fury in her eyes. "You think you deserve it?" she spat. "You think this is fair?" I had no idea what she was talking about. Not yet. But by sunrise, I discovered that my grandmother, my only real ally in this family, had left me her house. And the rest of them? The people I thought were my blood? They were already preparing to sue me. They said I manipulated her, that I tricked her in her final days. But here's what they didn't know. My grandmother left me more than just a house. She left me a key, and a secret, one that could burn this entire family to the ground. Red triangle pointed down, and when I unlocked that door, I found something none of us were supposed to see. Let me back up. My name's Kate Dawson. I'm 28, a freelance graphic designer from Pittsburgh, and until a few weeks ago, I hadn't seen most of my extended family in years. Not until the funeral. Grandma Ruth was 89, sharp as a whip until the end. She passed peacefully in her sleep, or so they told me. The moment I walked into the church, I felt the tension. My uncle Stephen, her eldest son, barely looked at me. My Aunt Rachel gave me a stiff nod. Chloe? She didn't even pretend to be civil. I didn't care. Grandma Ruth had been the only one who ever treated me like I mattered. She used to call me her midnight bloom, said I thrived when others wilted. After the service, the lawyer pulled me aside. "There's something we need to discuss. Privately." And just like that, everything changed. Grandma Ruth left me her house. Not just any house, the family home. The one built by my great-grandfather in 1910, with stained glass windows, clawfoot tubs, and a root cellar older than most countries. Everyone assumed it would go to Stephen, the golden son. But no, she left it to me. In writing, notarized, witnessed, ironclad. By the time I left the lawyer's office, I had a copy of the will in my purse, and 3 missed calls from Chloe. That night, they showed up. Chloe, Stephen, Rachel, screaming, accusing, demanding. "You manipulated her," Rachel said. "You must have pressured her. She was old. She was clear," I told them. "She knew exactly what she wanted." They didn't like that answer. That's when the threats started. By the end of the week, I was served. They were suing me. All of them. Claiming undue influence, mental incompetence, fraud. And I'll admit it, I panicked. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't even have health insurance. But something inside me said, stay calm. Because Grandma Ruth hadn't just left me the house. She'd left me a letter, tucked in the back of her jewelry box. Handwritten, with one sentence underlined twice. "Don't trust the Dawsons." The letter was cryptic. She warned me not to speak to Stephen alone, not to enter the attic until I was ready, and never, under any circumstances, to show them the green key. There was no green key in the jewelry box. Not yet. But 2 days later, I found it hidden inside a hollowed-out book in her personal library, Wuthering Heights, of all things. I picked it up and felt the chill. It wasn't just a key. It was a message. I moved in that same week. The house was colder than I remembered. Quiet. Almost too quiet. But it still smelled like her, lavender and lemon oil. Every creak of the floorboard echoed. Every hallway felt like it was holding its breath. That night, I stood in front of the attic door with the green key in my hand. Something told me not to open it. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to an email. No sender. No subject. Just 2 lines. Don't trust the lawyer either. What you're looking for is behind the wall in the library. I stared at the screen, stunned. How did they know where I was? How did they know what I was thinking? I walked to the library and stared at the wall. Then I saw it. Barely visible behind an old shelf, an outline. A hidden panel. I pried it open with a letter opener. Inside, an old metal box, and a flash drive. I plugged the drive into my laptop. It whirred. Loaded. What I found. Family videos. Files. Medical documents. Bank records. Hidden transactions. And then, photos. Dozens of them. My grandmother. My mother. My Uncle Stephen. But not together. Not as family. The dates didn't match. The names didn't match. My mother wasn't who they said she was. And neither was I. I thought the house was the inheritance. Turns out, the truth was. And once I opened that box, there was no going back. The next time I saw my family was at the lawyer's office. We were packed into a mahogany-walled room like mismatched chess pieces. Everyone wore black, but the grief was nowhere in sight. My Uncle Mark smirked at me across the room. My cousin Danielle tapped furiously on her phone. My Aunt Ruth dabbed the corners of her eyes with a tissue, but her mascara was flawless. Then Mr. Klein, the estate lawyer, cleared his throat and opened a thick folder labeled Mildred E. Monroe, Last Will and Testament. Let's begin. It started off normal. A few small bequests. Jewelry to Ruth. Stocks to Danielle. Grandpa's old coin collection to Mark. And then, to my beloved granddaughter, Charlotte, I leave the house at 114 Ashgrove Lane in its entirety, along with its contents, keys, and legal deed. Do not let anyone take this from you. Gasps. Audible ones. The air shifted. And just like that, I became public enemy number one. Though it wasn't even cold before Uncle Mark cornered me outside the office. That house was promised to the family, he growled. She left it to me. Legally. She was old. Confused. Manipulated. I stepped back. Are you serious right now? You'll hear from our lawyer, he snapped, storming off. And he meant it. 2 days later, a letter arrived. A formal notice of intent to contest the will. I had no idea what I'd gotten into. Back at the house, I tried to settle in. The old place creaked like it was whispering. At night, the wind pushed against the windows like it wanted in. But it still felt like home. Until I met Mrs. Lint. She was my grandmother's next-door neighbor. A sharp woman in her 70s with suspicious eyes and a long memory. Your grandma told me once, she said, that the house holds more than just memories. I blinked. What do you mean? She said something about a key. That it only works when the moon's just right. I didn't have time for riddles. But then I remembered the small green key in the envelope my grandmother left. It had no label, no door, just a faint inscription. Midnight opens what daylight hides. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak made me sit up. Every rustle made me check the locks. At exactly 12:03 a.m., the temperature dropped. Not like regular cold, like the air was being pulled out of the room. Then, I heard it. A click. Not from a window. From downstairs. I grabbed a flashlight and the green key and tiptoed through the hallway, heart pounding. In the living room, the old grandfather clock had shifted. Behind it, there was a panel in the wall. I pushed, and there it was. A hidden door. The key slid in smoothly. The door groaned open to reveal a narrow staircase. Dust rained from above with every step I took. At the bottom was a room. Stone walls. Shelves lined with books, files, and old boxes. A single light bulb hung overhead. In the center was a desk. And on the desk, another envelope. It was addressed to me. Inside was a note in my grandmother's perfect cursive. If you found this, you need to know the truth. They're not just after the house. They're after what's beneath it. I dropped the letter. What could possibly be beneath it? The next morning, I woke to a flood of messages. My cousin Danielle had posted a passive-aggressive Instagram story with a blurry photo of the house and the caption, "Imagine stealing from your own blood." But it got worse. That afternoon, I was served. The lawsuit was official. They were suing me for undue influence and elder abuse. Elder abuse? I hadn't even seen my grandmother for the last 3 weeks of her life. She'd asked to be left alone. I called Mr. Klein, the lawyer. They'll drag this out, he said grimly. Try to bleed you dry. Can they win? Depends. On what you find. On what you can prove. I went back to the hidden room. Started digging through the boxes. That's when I found them, cassette tapes. Labeled by year. All of them marked conversations. I dusted off an old player and popped one in. The crackling voice of my grandmother filled the room. But she wasn't alone. She was interviewing people. About something called the Order of Ashgrove. A secret society. Based in our town. And connected, somehow, to my family. I pressed pause. What the hell had I inherited? Later that night, I noticed a black sedan idling across the street. It was there for hours. Then gone. When I checked the mailbox, I found a note tucked inside. Stop digging or you'll be buried next. I tore it up and flushed it. But my hands didn't stop shaking for a full hour. By now, word had spread beyond the family. Local blogs were writing headlines like "Greedy Granddaughter Steals Estate" and "Ashgrove Heir Faces Lawsuit from Betrayed Relatives." I was getting death threats in my inbox. Someone posted my address. I couldn't breathe, but I wasn't giving up. My grandmother wanted me to find something, and I would. In the deepest drawer of the basement desk was a final folder. Unlike the rest, this one was new, crisp, and labeled Ashgrove/Operation Covenant. Inside were blueprints, Not of the house, of what lay beneath it. A second basement, one I hadn't found. Yet, what's hidden beneath the house? Why was my grandmother involved in a secret society? And just how far will my family go to silence me? When I received the letter from my uncle's lawyer, I expected threats. But this wasn't just a letter. It was a court summons. My family was suing me, accusing me of manipulating my grandmother into leaving me the house, claiming she was mentally unfit, that I had influenced her. The accusation stung. I hadn't even known I was in the will. I hadn't asked for this. But now, it was war. That night, sleep escaped me. I wandered the house and ended up in the study. Something about the bookshelf felt off. I found a small seam in the floor, hidden beneath the rug. A hidden compartment. Inside, a metal box. The initials EH were engraved on top. Esther Hamilton, my grandmother. The box was locked with a combination. I tried her birthday. Nothing. Then I tried mine. Click. Inside was a newer will, dated 3 months before her death. In it, she didn't just leave me the house, she left me everything. Everything. I stared at the signature, my hands trembling. Why had she hidden it? I brought the will to my lawyer, Joel. He verified it, filed it with the court. The response from my family was immediate. Accusations, online rants, late-night calls filled with venom. They said I forged it. Even my mother turned against me. I found cassette tapes hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace, labeled in Esther's handwriting, testimonies. I played the first one. If you're hearing this, it means they came for what was never theirs. Her voice, calm, determined. She spoke of coercion, theft, medication tampering, betrayal. I had no idea she'd been documenting everything. Someone tried to break into the house that night. The back lock was scratched, a screen removed, and a photo of me at the courthouse was tucked under the doormat. They wanted to scare me. They succeeded. The next day, an older man appeared on the porch. Said his name was Henry. He knew my grandmother. She was brave, he said. She tried to tell the truth. Now it's your turn. He gave me a blueprint of the house. It showed a second basement. I found the hidden door in the pantry. It led to a cold, forgotten room beneath the house. A single bulb. A locked cabinet. Inside, folders. One for each family member. Letters. Photos. Documents. Proof of debts. Lies. Attempts to gain control over Esther's life. She had kept it all. I could stay quiet, or I could use what she left behind. I copied the files. Called Joel. If they want to fight, I said, let's give them one. The courtroom didn't feel like a place of justice. It felt like a stage, one where everyone wore masks. The first day of the hearing was tense. My uncle's lawyer, a smug man named Reiner, painted me as a manipulative opportunist. He brought up my financial struggles, my therapy records, even my social media posts. Every photo with my grandmother was twisted into something sinister. They were close, Reiner said to the judge, but perhaps a little too close. My stomach turned. My lawyer, Joel, remained calm. We'll present our own evidence soon, he whispered to me. Let them dig their grave. On the second day, I handed over the tapes to Joel. We submitted them into evidence. The judge allowed us to play one. My grandmother's voice filled the silent courtroom. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. I'm of sound mind. And I'm leaving everything to the only person who's ever protected me, my grandchild. The silence afterward was deafening. My aunt stormed out of the courtroom. My cousin wouldn't look me in the eye. But my mother sat still, pale, unreadable. When I caught her gaze, there was something there. Not hate, not anger. Something worse. Guilt. That evening, after court, I found a letter slipped under the front door. Handwritten. No envelope. You're in danger. They won't stop until it's gone. It's not just about the house. Look deeper. No signature. Joel urged me to turn it over to the police. I didn't. Something told me this was meant only for me. I went back to the hidden basement. There was one drawer I hadn't checked. Inside it was a leather-bound journal. Esther's handwriting again. She wrote of meetings, quiet conversations, blackmail attempts, mentions of a foundation, a secret trust she had established decades ago and hidden away. It's bigger than the will, she wrote. They want the legacy, the access. They'll twist the law to get it. Joel dug into the name. Turns out, the Hamilton Legacy Foundation had existed since 1972, a shell nonprofit established by Esther. But what made it powerful wasn't the money, it was the land. Underneath the house, beneath even the second basement, was a parcel of land linked to something else. Mineral rights. Untapped. Unclaimed. Worth millions. We had motive now. Real motive. It wasn't about sentimental value or tradition. It was greed. And I had proof. Documents hidden in that journal showed my uncle had approached Esther multiple times, asking her to sell. When she refused, the threats began. And so did the plan to declare her mentally unfit. Back in court, Joel presented the journal. Not only is the will valid, he said, but the defendant is the sole heir of an estate tied to a foundation. And that foundation is protected by corporate law. My family's faces twisted. Reiner tried to object. Overruled. That night, my mother came to the house. She stood on the porch, eyes red. I didn't know, she said. I thought you'd stolen her. But now, I think I was the one who left her behind. She handed me something. A key. She wanted you to have this, she said. To what? I asked. The vault. Vault. There was still more to find. I didn't sleep that night. The key my mother gave me felt heavier than metal. I turned it over in my palm again and again, wondering what it opened. I returned to the hidden basement at dawn, Joel trailing behind me with coffee and wariness in his eyes. We found the lock beneath the rusted floor panel. It was embedded in concrete, protected by decades of dust and neglect. The key clicked into place with a smooth, mechanical finality. The panel shifted. A staircase descended into darkness. It wasn't just a vault. It was a chamber, walls lined with safety deposit boxes, documents, and a single mural on the far side. A painting of Esther, younger, standing between two men in suits, her hand on a blueprint. Joel whistled. This isn't a vault. It's a cold archive. We spent hours cataloging. The documents detailed financial transactions, land deals, and legal loopholes Esther had used to protect her estate. But it was the audio tapes that shook me. Dozens of them, labeled with initials. The first one I played was my uncle's voice. If she doesn't sign it, we'll move forward without her. The doctors are on payroll. The papers will say she's not of sound mind. One way or another, the foundation is ours. My breath caught. Joel presented the recordings in court the next day. The judge listened in silence as my uncle's own voice condemned him. Reiner went pale. My aunt screamed that it was fake. The judge ordered forensic analysis. But the tone had shifted. I could feel the weight tipping. The court recessed for 2 days. During that time, news spread. Local outlets picked up the story. Betrayal beneath the will. A grandchild's fight for the truth. Public sentiment turned. My family retreated into silence. The final verdict was scheduled for Monday. Before the ruling, Joel made one last move. He submitted paperwork to not only uphold the will, but to restructure the foundation, with me as sole executor. That meant oversight, control, power. My uncle tried to speak again. The judge silenced him. You will address the court when spoken to, Mr. Hamilton. The ruling was swift. The will stood. The lawsuit was dismissed. I walked out of that courtroom with everything. The house, the foundation, the vault. But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a burden. My mother moved back to her small apartment. My aunt and uncle disappeared from town. I stayed in the house. And then I opened the final drawer in the vault. Inside was one last tape. No label. Esther's voice, clear and direct. If you found this, you know the truth. But the truth goes further than you think. The foundation was created for more than wealth. It was a shield to protect people like us from what's coming. Joel and I exchanged a look. The story wasn't over. And whatever she meant, I was now the one who had to carry it. The key was antique, brass, cold, and ornate. I held it in my palm as the sun crept over the estate, casting long shadows over the porch. My mother didn't say another word. She turned and walked away, leaving behind only guilt and the ghost of a family she once believed in. The vault, Esther had written, was where the truth waits for light. I searched every inch of the basement. Nothing. Then, behind a wall of rotting insulation, I noticed a faint breeze. A draft. I pressed against it. Hollow. A hidden door. The key fit perfectly. It wasn't a vault in the traditional sense. It was a room carved from stone. No lights. Just the damp scent of earth and time. I stepped inside with a flashlight, my breath misting in the cold air. Boxes. Tapes. Newspaper clippings. Photographs. And in the center, an iron lockbox with a crest I'd never seen before. Inside was a reel-to-reel recorder, and one final tape, labeled in Esther's handwriting. For the last air. Her voice cracked with age, but it was clear. Strong. If you're listening, It means you found the vault. It means they've come for what was never theirs. She told me everything. That she had once been part of something called the Hamilton Circle, a group of political donors and land barons in the 1950s who secretly bought up mineral-rich land across the country. But she broke away. She fell in love. She had me. And she decided to protect this land for the future. They've tried to erase me. They will try to erase you. But you have what they don't. You have memory. You have name. You have truth. I was crying by the time the tape ended. We presented the vault, the journal, the foundation documentation, the mineral rights. Joel was magnificent. The judge ruled. The will was valid. The house, the foundation, the land, all mine. My uncle and aunt stormed out. My cousin yelled obscenities. And my mother, she just watched. Silent. That night, I sat on the front porch, the house behind me no longer haunted, but whole. I thought of burning the vault, destroying everything, so no one else could come after me. But then I remembered her words. You have name. You have truth. So instead, I opened the foundation, turned the estate into a sanctuary, not just for the land, but for people like me, those who were forgotten, misunderstood, betrayed by their families and left behind. It came by courier. No return address. Just a single line on crisp, white paper. You kept the house, but you haven't uncovered everything. Beneath it, a symbol. The same crest from the lockbox. The Hamilton Circle wasn't gone. It was watching, waiting, and I had just declared war.